February 11th, 1939. Vatican City. Pope Pius XI had a speech ready. He had been preparing it for weeks. It was addressed to the Italian bishops, but everyone knew it was really addressed to the world. In it, he planned to publicly condemn Italy's alliance with Nazi Germany. He called Hitler a pagan. He called Nazism an enemy of the Church. He was prepared to say it out loud, on the record, to the world. He never got the chance. That night, Pope Pius XI died. Official cause: heart failure. The speech was locked away. His successor destroyed his notes, and the history of the Second World War was written without the most powerful moral voice on earth ever saying what needed to be said. To understand what was lost that night, you have to understand what the Pope meant to the world in 1939. There were 400 million Catholics on earth, in Italy, in Germany, in France, in Poland, in Spain, in South America. Every one of them listened to the Pope. When the Pope spoke, governments moved, soldiers questioned orders, citizens took to the streets. Pius XI had already done it once. In 1937, he co-authored Mit brennender Sorge, the first papal encyclical ever written in German, read from every Catholic pulpit in Germany, a direct condemnation of Nazi ideology. Hitler was furious. He called it a declaration of war. Now imagine that voice, amplified, not in an encyclical, but in a direct public speech from the Pope himself in 1939, before the war had even started. In this alternate timeline, Pope Pius XI wakes up on February 11th, 1939. He is frail. He is 81 years old. His doctors have been warning him for months, but he wakes up, and at 10 o'clock in the morning, he stands before the Italian bishops. His voice is weak, but his words are not. He calls Nazism what it is: a pagan ideology, an enemy of God, an enemy of man. He names Hitler. He names Mussolini. He calls on every Catholic in the world to refuse cooperation with fascism. The speech lasts 40 minutes. By noon, it is being broadcast on radio stations across Europe. By evening, the world has changed, or at least it has begun to. In 1939, 32% of the German Wehrmacht identified as Catholic. That's 1 in 3 soldiers. The Pope's speech doesn't stop them from fighting, not immediately, not all of them. But it plants a seed of doubt that no propaganda can fully uproot. When the order comes to round up Jews in the occupied territories, some Catholic officers hesitate, some refuse, some look the other way just long enough for people to run. It is not heroism, it is not enough, but it is more than nothing. And in the mathematics of the Holocaust, more than nothing means hundreds of thousands of lives, maybe more. Mussolini's Italy was 98% Catholic. When the Pope condemns your alliance with Nazi Germany, you have a political crisis that no army can solve. In this alternate timeline, Mussolini spends the next 2 years trying to hold together an alliance that the Pope has made spiritually toxic to the people it depends on. By 1941, the Italian public support for the war has collapsed. Italian generals begin secret negotiations with the Allies, not in 1943 as in real history, in 1941, 2 years earlier. 2 years earlier means no North African campaign, no siege of Malta, no second front in the Mediterranean draining Allied resources, and most importantly, German supply lines to North Africa are severed before Rommel even gets there. Here is something most people don't know. In real history, a group of German generals approached Pope Pius XII in 1939 with a plan to overthrow Hitler. They needed the Pope to act as intermediary with the British. to guarantee that if they removed Hitler, Britain would negotiate peace rather than invade. Pius XII agreed to help. He passed the message. The British hesitated. The generals lost their nerve. Hitler was never overthrown. Now imagine the same generals in a world where the Pope has already publicly declared Nazism an enemy of God. They don't need to convince the Pope. He is already with them. They don't need the British to trust them. The Pope's public backing is better than any political guarantee. The plot moves forward. It is July 1940. France has just fallen. Hitler is at the height of his power, and a group of German generals walk into his office for the last time. Without Hitler, the Nazi war machine doesn't stop. Not immediately, but without its most fanatical leader, it begins to fracture. The SS generals who would have continued the war at any cost are now facing a military that includes Catholic officers who have been told by God's representative on earth that what they are doing is wrong. The war in this timeline ends in 1943, not 1945, 2 years earlier. 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. In this alternate timeline, historians estimate between 2 and 3 million would have survived who did not in ours. 20 million Soviet soldiers died in the real war. In this one, perhaps half that number. The cities that were destroyed in 1944 and 1945, Dresden, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Warsaw, Cologne, Hamburg, are still standing. Here is what history teaches us about the night of February 11th, 1939. One man had the moral authority to change the direction of the most destructive war in human history. He was ready to use it. And then he died. His successor chose institutional survival over moral clarity. He chose the future of the church over the present of the people. History has never fully forgiven him. But here is the harder question. How many people alive today have that same choice in front of them? The authority to speak, the platform to be heard, the moment that will not come again, and the silence that is easier. This was What If Channel. Next episode. What if the Crusades had never happened? Leave a comment. Do you think Pius XII made the right choice to stay silent? Or was it the greatest moral failure of the 20th century? Subscribe. The alternate timeline drops every week.